Brian was a true weed scientist, and he was born a couple hundred years ago. Our weed of the week would have a different name. It's known as red root pigweed, but that red root can be really a tough thing because there's a lot of weeds with red roots. What red root pigweed has is a lot of hair.
Yeah, so my suggestion is, why don't we just call this thing hairy pigweed and have it over with? Well, seriously, every pigweed has a red root. Palmer amaranth and water hemp and all these different pigweeds, they all have a red root. So why should this one be called red root pigweed? I don't get it.
Well, I like the idea of hairy pigweed and smooth pigweed. It seems to make it a lot easier to distinguish between something like tall water hemp and red root pigweed. Either way, a lot of the products to control this weed are the same as Palmer amaranth or tall water hemp.
But you know, the interesting thing is, with any of these pigweeds, it seems like there's starting to be some Roundup resistant weed problems out there. And pigweed has been one that became atrazine resistant, or was discovered as atrazine resistant in some areas of the country. So certainly not all red root pigweed or all water hemp is atrazine resistant, but there is some of it that is much more tolerant to atrazine, just like there's some of it that's much more tolerant to Roundup. So it's becoming a more difficult weed to manage everywhere in our country.
Well, one thing about the pigweed species is it's very diverse. If you're looking at a patch of red root pigweed, not every plant is going to look the same. There's a lot of variance out there. So when you think about it that way, a weed with a lot of variance, it has a better chance to develop some resistance to certain herbicides. So you need to keep your options open when you have red root pigweed in your field. Now, the first thing that I would suggest, if you've got a tough weed like this, is take a two-pass approach. Put something down early to try and take a majority of the weeds out, so that way when you're coming post-emerge, the weeds aren't so thick. You're able to get a little bit of coverage. Plus, that way, the weeds aren't going to be so big either. So put a pre-emerge product down whenever you possibly can.
Okay, let's talk about those pre's real quick. In corn, the best product where it's labeled is Balance Pro, but certainly Harness, Surpass, Outlook, and Dual are all really pretty good on this weed. In soybeans, Treflan, Sonalan, or Prowl, the three most commonly used herbicides, they're pretty good. Valor or Domain would be a step above that even. And if you really wanted great red root pigweed control, you could combine Treflan, Sonalan, or Prowl with Valor or Domain.
Well, I want to mention this. When you're talking about pre-emerge products with red root pigweed, a lot of those products you mentioned are grass products. And when you've got grass products, they're really good at grass control, and they're pretty good at small-seeded broadleaf control sometimes. But you have to watch the rates that you're using of these products. Now, if you're using something like Valor or Sencor, those are primarily broadleaf products. They're going to do a good job even at the lower rates. But when you're talking about those grass products, have realistic expectations. If you're going to use a half rate of something like Harness, don't expect 95% control of red root pigweed. Keep that in mind with what you're doing in your herbicide program. This year, with the way crop prices are, you may say, you know what, with corn, at the price it's at, with beans at the price they're at, I'm going to spend a little bit more money on my pre. I'm going to spend an extra couple of bucks, and believe me, that will make a big difference on these pre's.
Okay, let's get to post-emerge herbicides in corn. There are many products that are going to work just fine. You can use Status, Distinct, Callisto, the new product Loudus, Impact. There are a bunch of them that will work. On the soybean end of things, Roundup obviously is pretty good if you don't have the resistant weeds, but you just have to make sure that you're using the right rate for the height of the weed. So spray early when the weeds are small, you'll have better luck. Otherwise, if it does start to get later, rather than throwing in a tank mix partner, if it was me, I would probably just increase my rate of Roundup.
That'll work until you see some resistance issues, but once you do, you're ending up with some tough choices to make, because you're going to have to burn those soybeans post-emerge with something like a Cobra or a Flex Star.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of guys aren't used to that anymore because they've been planting Roundup Ready beans, and Roundup's pretty safe on soybeans, so you're not used to seeing speckling on the leaves or even burning of the leaves. If you're one of those guys that really doesn't want to see that, then spend more money on your pre. Do a Valor plus a Sencor, or a Treflan plus a Valor, something like that, so you really take out just about all of them pre-emerge so you don't have so many posts.
Okay, one last note. In wheat, there is a new product this year, Husky, that is real good on red root pigweed. Like Wide Match, for example, it's very commonly used. You will probably need to throw in a tank mix partner to do a better job on red root pigweed, because Wide Match, it's okay, just not great.
Well, our weed of the week is called red root pigweed. We like to think of it as hairy pigweed. Either way, you don't want to see it in your field, so get it under control this year to maximize your yields.
Well, that's it for our weed of the week, but stay tuned. There's more Ag PhD to come right after this.